On Father's Day, my family gave me a trophy that read, "Most likely to hold everyone back." They all laughed. My sister laughed the loudest. They thought it was a joke. So I smiled, said thanks, packed my bags that night, and set a trap they never saw coming. This is where the story truly begins, and you won't want to miss what happens. Make sure you're subscribed to see it through to the end. We're always curious. Where in the world are you all watching from today? Let us know in the comments. The smell of lighter fluid and cheap charcoal hung heavy in the humid June air. It was Father's Day, and as had been the custom for the past 22 years, I was the one manning the grill. Our actual father had been gone since I was 20, leaving me, the oldest child, to pick up the pieces of our shattered family. I had been the one to console our mother, Maria, then 42 and completely lost. I had been the one to raise my sister, Lucy, who was a toddler of 4, and my brother, Ben, who was barely 1. I had been the one to abandon my own life, my own scholarships, my own future, to take a bookkeeping job that eventually led to my career as a financial controller, all to keep the roof over our heads. So, yes, I was the one grilling the burgers, the one who had bought the burgers, the one who had paid the mortgage on the house we were standing in, and the one who had just refilled the propane tank. It was Father's Day. The irony was suffocating. "Steph, you're burning them," Lucy's voice trilled from the patio. I flipped the patties, my hand steady, my face a mask of calm. "They're fine, Luce." "Well, hurry up, we have a presentation." My stomach tightened. A presentation. "Just a fun little thing," she sang. I transferred the last of the food to the platters, carried them over to the picnic table, and began tidying the prep area. My family, Mom, Ben, Lucy, and her new, slick fiancé, Marco, were all seated, sipping the expensive craft beer I'd paid for. They were laughing, comfortable in the shade of the patio umbrella. I was sweating, my polo shirt sticking to my back. Okay, everyone." Lucy clapped her hands, silencing the chatter. Her eyes, bright and ambitious, sparkled. At 26, she was everything I wasn't, carefree, beautiful, and utterly unburdened. "So, we all know it's Father's Day, and while Dad isn't here, we thought we'd celebrate the other guiding force in our lives." Marco, 34 and reeking of disruptor energy, draped an arm around her. "It's all in good fun, Steph. Just a little family roast." Ben, sweet-faced and perpetually 23, giggled and hid his face behind his phone. My mother just smiled, a vague, pleasant expression she wore whenever she sensed conflict and wished to be excluded from it. "Ben, the honors," Lucy prompted. Ben stood up, holding something wrapped in a kitchen towel. It was lumpy and awkward. "Okay, so, we all voted," he started, already laughing. "And the first annual Miller Family Award for, most likely to hold everyone back, goes to." He pulled the towel away. It was a trophy, a hideous homemade thing. A plastic baseball figure spray-painted gold, glued crookedly to a block of wood. On the small, brass-colored plaque, engraved with a shaky hand, were the words, "Most likely to hold everyone back." My breath stopped. The sound of the neighbor's lawnmower, the birds, the distant traffic, it all faded into a sharp, piercing ring. I looked at the trophy, then at their faces. Ben was giggling, unable to make eye contact. My mother was smiling, that same placid, noncommittal smile. Marco was smirking, his eyes cold and triumphant. And Lucy was laughing. It wasn't a small chuckle. It was a loud, hearty, unrestrained laugh, her head thrown back, her hand clutching Marco's arm. It was the laugh of someone who had just delivered the perfect punchline. The silence that followed was filled only by the echo of her mirth. I felt the heat rise in my face, a deep, painful blush that started at my collar and burned its way to my hairline. I had been humiliated before. I had been overlooked. I had been taken for granted. But this was a new, refined cruelty. They were all looking at me, waiting for me to laugh along, to be the good sport I had always been. My gaze locked onto Lucy's. Her laughter finally died when she saw my expression, but the smile remained, fixed and defiant. This wasn't a joke. This was a message. This was retaliation for my refusal, 2 nights ago, to fund her and Marco's latest high-risk, crypto investment scheme by taking out a second mortgage on my house. I swallowed. I reached out and took the ugly, golden plastic effigy from Ben. I held it. It was light, cheap, and insulting. I forced my lips into a smile. "Wow," I said, my voice surprisingly even. I don't know what to say, thank you." The tension broke. Ben laughed in relief. Marco clapped me on the shoulder, a gesture that was more of a shove. "See. She gets it, good sport, Steph." "It's just a joke, honey," my mother chimed in finally. "You know we love you." "Yeah, Steph," Lucy said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "We just want you to, loosen up, live a little, let us live a little." "I will," I said, still smiling. "I'll keep that in mind." I placed the trophy on the table, next to the potato salad. "Now, who wants a burger? I still need to clean this all up." They ate, I cleaned. I scraped plates, bagged trash, and scrubbed the grill until the grates shone. Through it all, I smiled. I nodded. I was the perfect, accommodating, invisible support structure they had always known. That night, after everyone was in bed, I went to my childhood bedroom. The house was silent. I picked up the trophy from my dresser, where I'd placed it, most likely to hold everyone back. I looked at it for a long, long time. The cheap gold paint was already flaking, revealing the white plastic underneath. It was a monument to their entitlement, to their blindness, to the 22 years of my life I had sacrificed to give them the luxury of seeing me as an obstacle. I didn't cry, I didn't rage. I felt a profound, Arctic cold settle in my chest. I turned on my laptop and made 2 phone calls. Then, I opened my suitcase and began to pack. The betrayal wasn't the joke, it was the truth they'd finally been brave enough to tell. The house was quiet when I left, just before 5 a.m. I'd packed only what was essential: my work laptop, my personal files, clothes for a few weeks, and my toiletries. I left everything else. The furniture I'd bought, the kitchen appliances I'd paid for, the framed photos of a family that, it turned out, I didn't really know. I placed my key on the kitchen counter, next to a simple 3-word note: "I am done." I drove not to a friend's house. I hadn't had time to cultivate many deep friendships, but to a clean, anonymous extended-stay hotel in the business district near my office. I checked in, unpacked my small bag, and sat on the firm, unfamiliar bed as the sun began to rise, staining the unfamiliar skyline with shades of gray and purple. For the first time in my adult life, the only person I was responsible for was myself. The feeling was terrifying, and it was pure. I spent the next 48 hours in a state of suspended animation. I informed my boss I needed to take personal leave, citing a family emergency. Another irony, and my request was instantly approved. I was a model employee, the most reliable person in the company. Of course, I could have the time. I slept, I ordered room service. I watched movies I didn't remember. I was waiting. The silence was a balm, but I knew it was temporary. The first call came, as expected, on Tuesday morning. It wasn't my mother, wringing her hands with worry. It wasn't Ben, feeling a pang of guilt. It was Lucy, and she wasn't worried. She was furious. I looked at the Lucy caller ID for a long moment before answering. "Hello." "Stephanie, where are you?" she snapped. No preamble, no "are you okay?" Just pure, unfiltered annoyance. "I'm out," I said calmly, sipping the hotel's mediocre coffee. "Out? What does that mean?" Mom is freaking out, and the account for the groceries was declined. "I had to use my own money, Stephanie. My own money. What is going on? Did you not pay the bill?" I closed my eyes. The grocery account. A joint checking account I'd set up years ago and funded weekly, so they could buy food without ever having to think about the logistics of it. I had closed it on Monday morning. "The bill was paid, Lucy," I said. "The account is closed." There was a stunned silence on the other end. "Closed? Why would you do that? What am I supposed to use for Mom's prescriptions?" "I imagine you'll use your own money," I said. Another pause, this one was colder. "What is this, Steph? Is this about that stupid trophy? My God, it was a joke. Are you really this petty? You're going to let Mom starve because your feelings got hurt. I'm not letting anyone starve, Lucy. I'm just done, like the note said. Done with what? Done being part of this family. You can't just leave, you have responsibilities. You have responsibilities. The words echoed in the sterile hotel room. For 22 years, that phrase had been my shackles. But the trophy hadn't just been an insult, it had been a key. No, Lucy, I said, and I was surprised at the steel in my own voice. I don't, not anymore. You are unbelievable, she seethed. You're trying to punish us. Marco was right, you are controlling, you're trying to ruin my life. I'm not doing anything, Lucy, I'm just stopping. Well, you can't, she shrieked. My car payment is due on Friday, and I have the final payment for my brand launch seminar. You have to transfer the money. What am I supposed to do? I sighed. This was the crux of it. Not my absence, but the absence of my wallet. That's for you too. Figure out, I said. Stephanie, if you don't fix this, I swear. I hung up. My hand was shaking, not from fear, but from adrenaline. The parasitic bond had been severed, and the host was finally noticing. I walked to the window and looked down at the busy street. Cars and people, all moving with purpose, all with their own lives to manage. I had been a ghost in my own, and I was finally materializing. Lucy was panicking about a car payment and groceries. She was worried about the small, day-to-day stipend I provided. She hadn't even thought to check the real money. She was worried about the joint checking account, but she had forgotten one crucial thing. 5 years ago, when she'd first started her social media manager career, she'd been making a mess of her finances. To protect her from herself, to keep her tax compliant, to give her a veneer of professionalism, I had set up L. Miller Media, LLC. I had done the paperwork, I had filed with the state, and I had structured the operating agreement with the precision of a financial controller. Lucy was a salaried consultant. I, Stephanie Miller, was the sole managing member, with exclusive signatory authority over all corporate accounts. I was the LLC, and Lucy, and by extension Marco, had no idea. They just saw it as the magic bank account that paid for their flashy lifestyle. They thought they had given me a trophy for holding them back. They were about to find out I was the only one holding them up. My sacrifice wasn't a single act. It was a death by 1,000 paper cuts, a life given away one relinquished dream at a time. When our father died of a sudden heart attack, he left us with a grieving widow and a mountain of debt I hadn't even known existed. The charming, jovial man I remembered had been living a lie, borrowing against the house, with 2 maxed-out credit cards and a personal loan I'm still not sure the purpose of. I was 20. I was 2 years into a full-ride scholarship for economics at a prestigious university. I had plans. I was going to study abroad, get my MBA, and work in international finance. I was going to see the world. Instead, I came home. I dropped out of my dream school and enrolled in night classes at the local community college, transferring to the state school's satellite campus once I had a full-time job. I remember my first day as a junior bookkeeper. I sat in a gray cubicle inputting numbers, my heart a leaden weight in my chest, while my old roommates sent me pictures from their semester in Florence. I never went back. I became a local. I became responsible Stephanie. I stabilized the family finances. I negotiated with the bank to stop the foreclosure. I worked 60-hour weeks, clawing my way up from bookkeeper to accountant to financial controller, all while raising my siblings. I packed Ben's lunches, I taught Lucy how to read, I attended their parent-teacher conferences. Maria, my mother, simply receded. She became another child to care for, lost in her own grief and incapable of making a single decision. I paid for everything. Lucy's braces, Ben's first car, Lucy's social media management degree, Ben's current college tuition. I did it all without a single thank you. It was just my job. I was the family utility, expected, invisible, and only noticed when I malfunctioned. Then, 6 months ago, Marco entered the picture. Lucy brought him home, and my internal alarms didn't just ring, they blared. He was 34, but he dressed like a 22-year-old who just discovered a credit card. He wore designer sneakers that were too loud, a watch that was almost real, and an overwhelming cloud of cologne. His profession, he'd announced, was crypto investor and day trader. He was all buzzwords. "It's about decentralized finance, Steph," he'd said to me, his tone deeply condescending, after learning I was a traditional financial controller. "It's the future. You've got to be agile. You've got to disrupt." What I saw was a man with no verifiable income, a leased luxury car he couldn't afford, and a desperate, hungry look in his eyes. He wasn't interested in Lucy, he was interested in her lifestyle. A lifestyle he didn't realize was funded entirely by me. His focus shifted to me the moment he understood I was the one who signed the checks. His charm was oily and transparent. He'd compliment my prudence, my stability, but his questions were always pointed. "This house is incredible, Maria," he'd said to my mother, knowing full well I was the one who paid the bills. "A paid-off asset like this in this market, you're sitting on a goldmine." I saw him for exactly what he was, a predator who had mistaken a well-managed sanctuary for a fat, lazy target. The trophy incident, I knew, was the direct result of the fight we'd had 2 nights before the barbecue. Lucy and Marco had cornered me in the kitchen after dinner. "Steph," Lucy had started, her voice vibrating with practiced excitement, "Marco and I have the most amazing opportunity. It's the launch of my brand, my real official brand." Marco had taken over, placing a thin, flashy prospectus on the counter. "We've found a new token, pre-launch. It's set to disrupt the entire NFT market. But to get in on the ground floor, we need 75K in liquidity. Fast." I'd looked at him. A new token, so an unregulated, uninsured, speculative asset. "It's groundbreaking, Stephanie," he'd snapped, his mask slipping. "And what does this have to do with Lucy's brand?" "The profits, Steph," Lucy had jumped in. "Marco thinks he can triple it in a month. That's the seed money for my launch. We can finally get out of this house, get our own place, start our lives." I'd flipped through the prospectus. It was just poorly designed graphics and meaningless jargon. "I see. And where did you expect to get this 75K in liquidity?" Marco had smiled, a politician's smile. "That's the best part. We're not asking you for your money. We're just asking you to unlock the family's money. A simple second mortgage on the house. The bank will approve it in a day. It's a no-brainer." I had closed the prospectus and pushed it back across the counter. "No." The smiles vanished. "What?" Lucy's voice was sharp. "No, absolutely not. I am not leveraging the family home, the only asset we have, which I worked for 20 years to secure, on a high-risk gamble. It's financially reckless." "It's not a gamble," Marco insisted. "It's the definition of a gamble," I'd shot back, my controller voice taking over. "You have no business plan, no risk assessment, and no collateral. This isn't finance, it's a lottery ticket. The answer is no." Lucy's eyes had filled with tears of rage. "You see, Marco, you see, this is what she does. She can't stand to see me happy. She can't stand to see me succeed. She's holding me back." "I'm protecting you, Lucy." "You're controlling me," she'd shrieked. "It's my father's house, too. You have no right." "The house is in my name, Lucy," I'd said quietly. A necessary legal move I'd made years ago to shield it from our father's lingering creditors. And the answer is final. She had stormed out. Marco had given me a look of pure, unadulterated hatred. "You're going to regret this," he'd hissed. 2 days later, they'd handed me the trophy. It wasn't a joke. It was a declaration of war. They just didn't realize I was the only one with any ammunition. The hotel room had become my command center. My initial wave of grief had receded, replaced by the cold, familiar hum of professional focus. I wasn't just a grieving sister anymore. I was a financial controller conducting an audit on a hostile entity. My first move, after hanging up on Lucy, was to log into the corporate portal for L. Miller Media, LLC. The accounts were exactly as I'd left them. The business checking account, which I kept funded with just enough for Lucy's salary and operating expenses, was now nearly empty from her last withdrawal. The real money, the LLC's profits from the few legitimate brand contracts I'd negotiated for her, was in a corporate high-yield savings account, an account she didn't know existed. With a few clicks, I transferred the entire balance from that savings account into a new locked escrow account at a different bank, an account that required my signature, and only my signature, for any withdrawal. I wasn't stealing it. I was protecting it from the predator I knew Marco to be. Next, I logged into the admin portal for the corporate credit cards. There were two, a primary card for business expenses, which I saw was used for restaurants, spas, and designer clothes, and a secondary one for operations, which paid for her car lease and subscriptions. I canceled them both, effective immediately. I was severing the lifelines. This wasn't just an emotional departure, it was a full financial extraction. But I knew that wasn't enough. Marco was a cornered animal, and he would be dangerous. I needed to know exactly what I was dealing with. As a controller, I knew that numbers don't lie. People do. I made a call to a man I'd used professionally once or twice to vet potential corporate partners. He was a discreet private investigator who specialized in financial forensics. "David," I said, "I have a situation. A man named Marco." I gave him the full name Lucy was using on her gushing social media posts. "He's engaged to my sister and has been attempting to gain access to family assets. I need a full workup. Credit history, business filings, criminal record, known associates, and any open judgments. I also have a suspicion he's involved in predatory crypto schemes. See what you can find." "Consider it done, Stephanie," he'd replied. "I'll be in touch." For the next week, I lived in a strange limbo. I went to my office, cleared my desk, and formally transitioned my projects to a colleague, telling my boss I was taking a full 4-week sabbatical. He was supportive, if Enfused. "Whatever you need, Steph, you've earned it." The calls from my family were relentless. They escalated in a predictable, pathetic pattern. First, Lucy again, hysterical. Her car had been declined. Her card for the brand seminar had been declined. "What did you do, Stephanie? You're destroying my future." Then Ben, awkward and guilty. "Hey, Steph, Mom is really upset, and my tuition payment is due next week. The one you always handle. Did you handle it?" "No, Ben," I'd said, my heart aching a little for him. He was weak, not malicious. "I didn't." "Oh, okay, well, can you, please? Everyone is really sorry about the trophy." "Are they, Ben? Or are they just sorry the bank is closed?" He didn't have an answer. Finally, my mother. Her voice was thin, watery, and full of practiced helplessness. "Stephanie, dear, this has gone on long enough. Lucy is very upset. You've made your point. Now, please come home. I don't know how to work the new coffee machine." I don't know how to work the new coffee machine. After 22 years, that was the emergency. That was the depth of her concern for me. "I'm not coming home, Mom," I said, my voice flat. "You'll have to read the manual." I hung up and blocked all their numbers. My actions had to speak for themselves. The silence that followed was heavy. On Friday, exactly 12 days after I'd left, I got the email I was waiting for. It was from David. The subject line was simple: "Report, MARCO." I opened the attached file. It was worse than I thought. Marco was a con artist, a failed one at that. He had 2 failed LLCs of his own, both dissolved by the state for failure to pay taxes. He had 3 outstanding judgments against him from former business partners totaling over $90,000. He had no real assets. His flashy car was a subprime lease about to be repossessed, and the crypto platform he was pushing was a complete sham. The website had been set up 6 weeks prior, registered anonymously. The final page of the report was the killing blow. It was a list of his creditors. He wasn't just in debt to banks, he was in debt to the kind of people who don't send polite letters. He was desperate. He wasn't trying to build a future with Lucy, he was trying to find an escape hatch. and he thought he'd found it in my family, in my house. He hadn't been trying to get $75,000 for Lucy's brand. He'd been trying to get $75,000 to save his own skin. My phone, which had been silent for days, suddenly buzzed. It was an unknown number. I answered. It was Lucy. She was sobbing, not angry, not hysterical, sobbing. Stephanie, please, she choked out. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry about the trophy. I'm sorry about everything. Please, I need your help. Marco, he's terrifying me, he said. He said I have to get the money or we're both in trouble. I don't know what to do. Please, Steph, help me. The second her voice broke, the trap I had so carefully set snapped shut. Where are you? I asked, my voice devoid of emotion. We're at the house, she whispered, as if afraid of being overheard. He's in the living room. He's been on the phone all day, yelling at people. Stay there. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Do not be alone with him. Are you bringing the money? I'm bringing a solution, Lucy. I hung up and called David. Are you available for an in-person consultation? Right now, I'll double your rate. Where am I going? He asked. I drove to my old house, the one I had saved and they had poisoned. I parked at the curb, but I didn't go in. I waited. 5 minutes later, a nondescript sedan pulled up behind me. David got out, a man in his late 50s with a calm, professional demeanor, carrying a leather briefcase. What's the situation? He asked as he got into my passenger seat. A domestic dispute with a high-risk financial element. The man in that house is the subject of your report. He is unstable and desperate. My sister is inside. I am going in to extract her and to present my findings. I want you there as a witness. You are not to engage, you are just to be present. Is that clear? Crystal, he said, adjusting his tie. We walked up the path I had weeded 100 times. I used my old key. It still worked. The scene in the living room was one of complete disarray. My mother was on the sofa, weeping silently. Ben was standing by the fireplace, pale and trembling. Marco was pacing, his phone clamped to his ear, his slicked-back hair a mess. He was wearing the same clothes he'd had on 2 days ago. The smell of fear and stale beer was thick in the air. Lucy was a wreck. Her eyes were red and swollen, and she was huddled in the armchair, looking like a child. When I walked in, followed by a large, unfamiliar man in a suit, the room fell silent. Marco's phone call ended abruptly. Stephanie, my mother breathed, a wave of relief washing over her face. Thank goodness, tell Lou. To fix this, Marco is very upset. Marco's eyes narrowed, first at me, then at David. Who the hell is this? Are you crazy? You brought a stranger here. This is my associate David, I said calmly. He's here to observe. Steph, Lucy ran to me, grabbing my arm. Did you do it? Did you unfreeze the accounts? Marco says he can fix everything, we just need the liquidity. I looked at her, my heart a cold, hard stone. The manipulation, the addiction to a fantasy, it ran so deep. I am not unfreezing the accounts, Lucy. What? Marco roared. He took a step toward me. David took a half step forward and Marco stopped. You think you can just waltzing in here? This is my house, our house. It's my house, Marco, I said, my voice cutting through his bluster. And you are no longer welcome in it. You can't do that, I'm family. Lucy and I are getting married. You are stealing from us. This is illegal. Is it? I asked. I walked over to the coffee table, pushing aside a stack of his crypto printouts. I placed my own file on the table and opened it. Lucy, when I set up L. Miller Media, LLC, I had you sign the operating agreement. Do you remember that? Lucy looked confused. I don't know, I signed a bunch of bank stuff. You signed a binding legal document, which I have right here. I tapped the first page. It outlines the structure of the company. It names me, Stephanie Miller, as the sole managing member. It gives me 100% fiduciary control over all company assets and decisions. It lists you as a salaried consultant. You have no legal claim to a single dollar in that account. I am not stealing from you, Marco. I am protecting the company's assets from a fraudulent external party. You. Lucy's face went white. The blood drained from it so fast I thought she might faint. What does that mean? It means, I said, that the money you thought was yours was never yours. It was the company's. And as the head of the company, I've secured it. Marco's face contorted into a mask of pure rage. The slick, charming salesman was gone, replaced by a desperate, cornered rat. You witch, he spat. You think you're so smart? You planned this. You were always trying to sabotage me. No, I said. I was just always prepared. I've been a financial controller for 15 years, Marco. I document everything. We'll sue you, he threatened, his voice cracking. We'll take you for everything. I'll tell the world what you did. Sue me with what money? I asked, my voice dangerously quiet. You can't even pay your phone bill, can you? Or is it your car lease that's overdue? Or perhaps it's the $92,400 you owe in outstanding judgments to your last 3 business partners. The silence in the room was absolute. Lucy stared at me, her mouth open, her eyes wide with a dawning, sickening horror. Ben looked like he was going to be sick. Marco froze. You think I'm holding you back, Lucy? I said, my voice finally breaking with the weight of 22 years. I am the only thing in your life that has ever moved you forward. You just couldn't see it. You brought this vulture, into our home, and he was going to burn it to the ground. All because I said no to a bad investment. He lied, Lucy whispered, looking at Marco. Steph, what judgments? I'll show you, I said. And then, Marco, you are going to leave. Marco's desperation was a palpable, ugly thing. She's lying. It's all lies. She's twisting things, Lucy, baby. You know how she is. She's just a bitter bean counter who can't stand to see us win. He was trying to reignite the narrative, to cast me as the villain one last time, but the foundation was crumbling. His voice was too high, his eyes too shifty. Am I Marco? I asked. I turned to the second document in my file. Then perhaps you can explain this. I didn't hand it to Lucy, who was still in shock. I handed it to Ben. Ben, read the names on that list, aloud. Ben took the paper, his hands shaking. It's a legal document, a judgment. Apex Capital versus Marco, he read the full name, for $35,000. I handed him the next one, and this. Acme Investments, $22,000. And this. A civil suit, breach of contract, $35,400. With each paper, the color drained further from my family's faces. My mother, for the first time in her life, looked truly, utterly terrified. She had finally realized this was a problem she couldn't ignore, a problem I might not be willing to fix. They're all lies, Marco yelled, lunging for the papers. David stepped in front of Ben, a solid, immovable wall. They are matters of public record, Marco, I said, my voice as cold and hard as a diamond. David here is a forensic investigator. He found them in about an hour. You're not a crypto genius. You're a serial fraud. You're broke. You're being sued. And you are deep in debt. I turned my full attention to my sister. She was crumpled on the floor, her illusions shattering around her like broken glass. He's not trying to build your brand, Lucy. He's trying to pay off his loan sharks. He needed that $75,000 to save himself, not to invest for you. No, Lucy was rocking back and forth, holding her head. He loves me, he wouldn't. She was still defending him. After everything, some part of her was still clinging to the fantasy. I had hoped this would be enough, but I saw now that the infection was deeper than I knew. I had one more piece of proof, the one I had saved, the one that would hurt the most. He loves you, Lucy. Did he love you when he took the $10,000 you gave him for the deposit on your wedding venue? Lucy's head snapped up. What about it? The $10,000 that came from the LLC account, the one I funded? I pulled the last document from my file. It was a bank statement with the wire transfer highlighted, and next to it, a printout of an email. I called the venue, Lucy. They never received your deposit. They have no record of your wedding, but I do have a bank trace. and David has a report from the crypto exchange. The money was wired from the LLC to Marco's personal account and then immediately transferred to a crypto wallet to cover a margin call. A call he lost. The money is gone. Your wedding, your deposit, it's all gone. He didn't just lie to you about his past, Lucy. He stole from you last week. That was the one. That was the blow that finally broke the spell. The sound Lucy made was not a cry. It was a raw, animal wail of absolute betrayal. She scrambled to her feet, her face a mask of tears and rage, and she flew at him. "You thief, you liar," she screamed, beating her fists against his chest. "I trusted you, I loved you, you stole from me." Marco, finally exposed, showed his true self. He grabbed her wrists hard and shoved her away. "Get off me, you crazy. It was my money, I earned it. I brought you the deals. You're nothing without me." "Get out." My voice was low, but it cut through her screaming and his yelling. Marco turned to me, his eyes murderous. "You'll pay for this, you'll all pay." "No, Marco," I said, picking up my phone. "You will. I have evidence of wire fraud, misrepresentation, and theft. My associate David has already packaged it for the district attorney. You have two options. You can walk out that door right now with nothing, and I will focus only on the civil suit to reclaim the LLC's stolen funds. Or you can stay, and I will make this call, and I will see you in a criminal court." He stared at me, his chest heaving. He was calculating. He looked at Lucy, who was sobbing in Ben's arms. He looked at my mother, who was hiding her face. And he looked at me, the bean counter, who had just systematically dismantled his entire life in under 10 minutes. He knew he had lost. Without another word, he snatched his car keys from the table and stormed out of the house. The front door slammed shut, and the echo hung in the air like a gunshot. The house was silent, save for Lucy's agonizing sobs. Ben looked at me, his eyes wide with a new, terrified respect. "Steph, what happens now?" I took a deep, shuddering breath. The adrenaline was fading, leaving behind a bone-deep weariness. "Now," I said, looking at the wreckage of my family, "we clean this up." The showdown had already happened, but the fallout was yet to come. The climax wasn't a public party. It was the quiet, brutal reckoning in the days that followed. The brand launch was, of course, a fantasy. The vendors hadn't been paid, the venue had been lost, and the entire endeavor had been built on Marco's lies. But my victory in the living room was only the first step. The true climax was the systematic, professional dismantling of the life they had built on my back. 2 days later, I called a final family meeting. This time, it wasn't at the house. It was at the downtown office of my lawyer. My mother, Ben, and Lucy arrived looking diminished. Lucy was hollow-eyed, dressed in simple jeans and a t-shirt, all the color and vibrato gone from her. She looked, for the first time, her age. My mother and Ben just looked scared. They were shown into a large, intimidating conference room. I was already there, at the head of the table, with my lawyer, Mr. Harrison, beside me. Stacks of neatly organized folders were in front of us. "Thank you for coming," I said. "This won't take long. I wanted to formalize the next steps so there are no misunderstandings." Mr. Harrison cleared his throat. "Ms. Miller has retained our firm to manage the dissolution of 2 key assets, the L. Miller Media, LLC, and the family home on Elm Street." My mother gasped. "The house, Stephanie, no, you can't." "I can, Mom," I said, "and I am. The house is legally mine, and the emotional cost of keeping it is too high. It's being put on the market next week." "Where will we live?" she whispered. "Ed," her voice trembling. "That," I said, "is what we are here to discuss." Mr. Harrison slid a folder toward Lucy. "First, the LLC. After a full audit and accounting for the funds stolen by Mr. Gallo, which we are aggressively pursuing in civil court, the LLC has a remaining net asset value. Per Ms. Miller's instructions, the LLC is being dissolved. Its debts are being paid. A small portion of the remaining funds will be released to you, Lucy." He slid a check across the table. It was for $5,000. "That's it," Lucy's voice was barely audible. "After 5 years, that's it." That's what's left after your brand launch expenses, your car lease, and the money Marco stole, I said flatly. Consider it a severance. It's more than you're legally entitled to. It's a fresh start. What you do with it is your own business. Lucy just stared at the check, her first piece of real, earned-in-despair money. Mr. Harrison continued. As for the proceeds from the sale of the house, he slid a thick document toward my mother. Ms. Miller has instructed me to create an irrevocable trust for your sole benefit, Maria. The entirety of the proceeds will be placed in this trust, managed by a neutral third-party trustee, to pay for your housing and medical care for the rest of your life. My mother looked at me confused. A trust. It means you will be taken care of, Mom, I explained, my voice softening for a moment. You will have a nice apartment, your bills will be paid, you will never have to worry about money. But the capital cannot be touched. Not by you, not by Ben, and not by Lucy. It is for your care and your care alone. I had just secured her future, and in the same breath, I had cut off her children from their primary source of funding. Ben, who had been silent, finally spoke. Steph, what about my tuition? It's due. I looked at my brother. I've paid for your education for 3 years, Ben. It's time for you to take it from here. You can apply for student loans, just like I did, or you can get a second job. Your portion of this family ends today. Ben looked down, his face flushing with the shame of a child finally being told no. This was the climax. Not a public fight, but a quiet, sterile, legal execution. It was me, in my power as a financial controller, drawing clear, undeniable lines. Lucy finally looked up, the check still in her hand. Her eyes were full of a new, dawning understanding. She wasn't just looking at her sister. She was looking at a stranger, a formidable woman she had never bothered to know. You thought of all of this, she whispered, not as an accusation, as a statement of fact. I think of everything, Lucy, I replied. That was the job you all gave me, the one you made that trophy for. I stood up. Mr. Harrison will handle the paperwork. I'll be in touch about the house sale. My part in this is over. I walked out of the conference room. I didn't look back. I didn't wait for the tears or the arguments. I just left. The final, triumphant act wasn't breaking free from Marco. It was breaking free from them. The downfall of Marco was swift and, from my perspective, blessedly quiet. Faced with a meticulously documented civil suit for fraud and theft, and with the clear threat of criminal charges for wire fraud, he disappeared. His lease company repossessed the car. His creditors, no doubt, were less than pleased. He was a ghost, vanished from our lives as quickly as he had appeared, leaving nothing but financial wreckage in his wake. My lawyers assured me they would pursue the judgment, but I knew, in reality, the money was gone. The price of the lesson. The house sold in less imperfect condition than I remembered it. The market was high, and my down payment years ago had been substantial. The proceeds were enough to fund my mother's trust handsomely. She was moved into a lovely 2-bedroom assisted living apartment, a place where she had companionship and no responsibilities. She was, in truth, happier and safer than she had been in years. Ben, forced onto his own 2 feet, had a rocky start. He complained bitterly about the loan applications, about having to work weekends at the coffee shop and a new job stocking shelves. But 6 months later, he was still in school, his grades had improved, and when he called me, our conversations were, for the first time, about his life, not about what he needed from me. The most profound change, however, was in Lucy. About 2 months after the meeting, she asked to see me. We met at a public park, midway between my new apartment and the small, 1-bedroom she was renting with a roommate. I bought us both coffees and we sat on a bench. She was different. Her flashy clothes were gone, replaced by a simple sweater and jeans. Her hair was its natural color. She looked calm. I got a job, she said quietly, staring into her cup. A real one, an entry-level marketing assistant at a small firm. It's hard, T. Pay is terrible. But it's yours, I said. Yeah, she took a shaky breath. Steph, I don't know how to. I'm so sorry, I know. I know sorry doesn't fix it. It doesn't fix anything. No, I agreed. It doesn't. I was so awful to you, she whispered, and now the tears were coming. All those years, I saw you as this wall, this permanent thing that was just there. I never, not once, thought about what it cost you. I never thought about what you gave up. We were children, Lucy. You and Ben were, I wasn't. But I wasn't a child at the barbecue, she said, her voice cracking. I was just cruel. I was so angry that you saw through him, and I was terrified you were right. And I hated you for it. I hated you for being smart. I'm so sorry, Steph. I looked at her, my 26-year-old sister, who was finally growing up. The anger I had held for so long had burned itself out, leaving just a vast, quiet space. I know, Lucy, I said. I forgive you. She wept, and this time, I reached out and put my hand on her shoulder. My own life was almost unrecognizable. I had moved into a sleek, modern apartment downtown, one that was all mine. It was small, but every piece of furniture in it was chosen by me, for me. I had taken a new, more challenging, and higher-paying job as a CFO for a tech startup. I was traveling for work, building my own future, meeting new people. Our family wasn't fixed. It would never be what it was, and that was the healthiest thing for all of us. There were no more big barbecues, no more assumed obligations, but there was a new, fragile honesty. Ben and I texted. Lucy and I met for coffee once a month. My mother called to tell me about her bingo games. One evening, I was unpacking the last box of my office supplies. At the bottom, wrapped in newspaper, was the cheap, gold-painted trophy. I had, for some reason, kept it. Most likely to hold everyone back. I held it for a moment, the symbol of my great betrayal, the catalyst for my liberation. Then, I walked it over to the trash chute, lifted the small, plastic effigy, and let it go. I heard it clatter into the darkness, disappearing forever. I went back inside, poured myself a glass of wine, and sat on my balcony, overlooking the city lights. I was 42 years old, and my life was just beginning. I had peace. I had vindication. And for the first time, I was truly, completely free.